What up, y'all? St. Pete. I was thinking on my way to work. We know the science is out that genetic memory is real. Through their experiments with the monarch butterfly, they've established that genetic memory is real. That trauma from your past that's being passed down genetically, might not be so in the conscious part of your brain. This is like a subconscious genetic memory that's being passed down from generation to generation, right? So it just made me think, so there is a trauma in European history where prior to black slavery, it was European slavery, and Europeans would be snatched off the coast, and they didn't like living near the coast because at that time the Moorish Empire controlled the seas. This was prior to the British. The Moors ran the seas, so they would snatch up Europeans, and that's where we get slave comes from the Slavs. The Slavs were the first slaves. So there's that. Now we're not really taught that. We're not really taught that. I didn't find out until I started looking into Moorish history. So now, from the year 711 to 1492, Muslims, black or more Muslims, came to Europe, invaded Europe, whatever. Europe was just in the dark age, and the Moors came in and brought it back to life, brought universities, brought architecture. They brought contributions to society in Europe. But there was strife, there was wars, there was constant wars going on back and forth. The Moors were in control of Portugal, Spain, maybe Italy, but there was basically the Moors were head of certain ones, and then the ones that weren't ruled by the Moors united under the banner of Christendom. That's where we get this Knights Templar, Christian Knights, from the year 711 to 1492. The Muslims, the black Muslims, were at war with the Europeans. And we have that history of constant fighting, right? So you take that into consideration, and you see that there's a trauma in the European psyche of being invaded by black Muslims, and they're able to play off of that trauma from the past by always getting us in a place of fear. Especially see it every 4 years. Race relations comes up. It's always got to be about race, and how people are so emotional about race. It's really hard to have just a sit down, just a regular conversation about race without somebody getting emotional about it. And I get it, it's an emotionally charged subject, but we're being controlled here. See, that's they use that. That's part of the mind control. They make it. They still scare white people with the threat of the black man. The Black Panthers, black people taking over. There's always that fear fear of a black or more Messiah. And Muslims too, it's not so much now. They're the Arab Muslims. It's different back then with the black or more Muslims. I mean, there's still some together, but there was a lot more black people. So that's two things that scare the shit out of white America fast, is black and Muslims. So, because people ask, is there tension with races and stuff like that, and I'm like, not where I come from, not how I interact and how I move with people. I mean, I don't, I don't feel any tension. Now, I get it, that maybe on some levels there is, but if you truly are, about the truth, people are going to be able to tell right from the rip. So it's not even, it's not even a matter of thought, because at the end of the day, everybody wants to just provide for their family and go home at the end of the night. Everybody wants to go home at the end of the night. Nobody wants all this extra shit, It's not as bad as they make it out to seem. That's the media is famous for that. The media is, violent crimes from the 80s up until 2000s, whatever. We'll take something. It's down dramatically. Or from the 90s. The point is that violent crimes went down, but coverage of violent crimes went up 700%. So it's about exacerbating any opportunity that they can get, because they know they're going to get a reaction. Because if they bring up the race thing, we have the trauma. Obviously, black people have trauma. Their genetic memory, there's a trauma there to react the way that they react based on their genetic memory, and the way the white people react. It's a reflection of all the ancestors. So, but if we're not told our history, if we're not told as Europeans that we were once slaves, and that we were slaves to the Moors, and the Moors ran shit, it always seems like history picks up right where the Moorish Empire ended and it became the European Empire. And that's we never get the whole story. So it's white people they think that shit can't happen to them. I feel like people are real naive, nah, white people, they can never do to us what they did to them. It's not true, brother. All people, they don't matter. If they could get to your mind, they could get to your actions. So, just some thoughts I was thinking, just because it's always such a supercharged, they could always get a rise out of the people when they bring up race stuff. And like I said, every 4 years it always gets about race in the mainstream media, and it's funny because it works every time. I'm not saying it isn't true. We're just saying that it works every time. So, but just something to think about. Got any questions or comments? Hit me in the whatever you call it. So, St. Pete, I'm out. Peace.